I want to welcome all of you to this event today. We're very excited about this event. We also want to welcome those that are Zooming, that are participating via Zoom. We have had this idea of this collaborative session for quite a while. We've a lot of work put into it. We've kicked it around for a while, and then all of a sudden it kind of came up quickly to get this event planned. But we wanted to be able to have our federal coordinators and our school business officials to come together. We know that when we're in a district, we have our own unique silos. We've got so many responsibilities when we're in our district that we just kind of get locked into our silo. And sometimes we miss out on being able to collaborate, even though we're on the same team, and we felt like this was a very fitting picture to use for this session, that we are all in this together. And we're all on the same team, even though sometimes we speak a different language. Sometimes we all know that we have different responsibilities in our district, but from a wide view range, we're all in this together to help the kids in our district. So hopefully today we will be able to kind of speak each other's language, help each other communicate with one another. We're hoping that any of you that have unique experiences or some ideas that you have in your district that you would be willing to share with all of us, that is certainly welcome. At the end of the day, we have Cabot School District coming in with their CFO, their federal programs, and their curriculum specialists here to kind of discuss some things that they do in their district that helps them to be able to communicate between the federal programs and the school business officials. Before we get started, I do want to make sure that we thank a lot of different people that were involved with this session. I want to thank you that are participating and your willingness to be here, and that you want to be here and to learn additional information. I want to thank the AAFC board. Some of the board members are here today: Jenny Barber, Chantel Raper. I do not want to miss anyone. If there's another AAFC board member here, please raise your hand. I know Kimberly Glass was very involved with this, Paul Jenkins, so I do want to thank him. I want to thank our ASBO board. I know our president is here today, Mr. Charles Warren. He's here. Zenia Clanton, Tina Wiley, Sharon Chukwale, Stacey Hopkins, Kevin Luck. I know we have several of our ASBO board members. And the ASBO board and the federal coordinator board came together to sponsor this and to pay for your lunch today if you're on site. So just to make it even easier to participate in this. The district expense, I guess, will be to send you here for your travel expenses. So I definitely want to thank both of those boards. I want to thank the Department of Ed, Ms. Deb Kaufman and her staff, as well as other staff members with the Department of Ed that will be presenting today, and those that are not necessarily presenting but are here participating and being a part of this. I want to thank Ms. Marilyn Johnson with Arch Ford and all of the Arch Ford staff that's been involved with this great meeting space, and then all the things that they put in to make this a successful event. I want to thank Team Digital and their part in this and being able to broadcast this throughout the state for those that are Zooming. I want to thank Cabot School District now in advance. They'll be presenting this afternoon and their part. If you are Zooming, you will find a Q&A button on your screens that you can send any questions in. We will try to monitor that as we go along so we can answer those questions that you send in. We also sent out a survey, AAEA did, in order to get some questions, so we will address those as well. I know we have a very busy day. We have a full day, so I will not keep us going with this part of it, but just a couple of reminders. We have snacks in the back, coffee, drinks. There's restrooms outside. If you need soft drinks, there's some soft drink vending machines available in another building. We will have lunch around 11:30. We're going to have a box lunch, and then we're going to quickly get back to this session. There will be an evaluation form that we will be presenting at the end of the session, and I do encourage you to complete that because we're hoping We'll have to twist some arms, hopefully, not too much. But we're hoping that we can have this as a part of an annual event. And so we want to make this very relevant. We don't want to waste anyone's time. We want to be able to have this to help us with our jobs. I want to introduce my future boss, Mr. Mike Hernandez. He will be the new Executive Director of AAEA starting July 1, and we're very excited about him coming on board and being able to work with him. I've had the opportunity to work with Dr. Hernandez on a couple of events, and very looking forward to working with him closely in the future. We're going to go ahead and get started now, and I want to introduce Ms. Deb Kaufman with the Department of Education, and thank you, Deb, and thank you for so much for what you're doing for this session.
Good morning. Good morning. See how the sound is going. Everybody, can you hear me? All right. We're super excited to be here. We welcome all of you. We have two goals today. To make sure that we've answered your questions about timelines. And as we started putting this presentation together, what we realize is we have so many timelines, but we're trying to put them all into the same 12-month span. So today, that's what we want to try to work on. Where are the barriers? What's causing problems? And then we want to talk about the collaboration that needs to happen to ensure that we really truly are all working together to achieve the student success that we desire. Throughout this presentation today, I'm going to be asking you these two questions. So if you'll get your note paper out, and as we're going through, if you will just start writing down, what questions do you have? What supports do you need? I wish we had. Write those down because that's going to help us. So I'm considering today my big needs assessment day of you saying, this is what we're not really clear about. This is what I'm not clear about. This is what we need. If you just did this one thing, made this one chart, made this one sheet, that would just help us go so far. Or if we could just adjust this one date, whatever the item is, we need to know what that is. Because then we can make the decisions of, can we do that, or is that too limiting, or whatever that is, but we won't know if you don't write it down and ask. So I'm going to ask you today that we'll, as time allows, that we'll answer those questions for the whole group. We're going to be working with Robin and the team to make sure that we get your answers answered, either on the video today or in supporting documents that will come later. The handout for today is posted on our federal programs webpage on the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education website. So it's right down at the very bottom of the page, right above Bobby Lester's name. You'll see it all right there. This session's being recorded. Evan is recording it. We're going to break it into segments, and those segments will also be posted in that same spot. So you can go back and revisit, and you can, of course, send us, text us, call us, email us, whatever, with any questions or recommendations that you have. So all throughout the day, I'm going to come back to this Q&A concept of what do you need to know. This morning, we're going to be looking, first of all, at the timeline. So bookkeepers are thinking about, we're getting close to ending the year, and school improvement people are thinking, oh, we're getting ready to update our school improvement plan. So while some people are closing out, some people are planning the beginning. And so that's how our timelines begin to overlap. So this morning, we're going to kind of briefly walk through needs assessment, school improvement, district support, what you need to know about it. Annette is here to talk about federal grants management. We're super excited about that. Ask her a ton of questions. We need you to know. This afternoon, Amy and Kathleen will be here to talk about finance. So we're super excited to be able to answer those questions. In between, we've got a lot of people from the department that's going to come up and give different bits of information that you've been asking us to share. Jared Clark's here to talk about health and wellness. Chelsea Moore is here to talk about our family engagement plan. So I think we're going to have a fun-filled day. We've got a big team here, so hopefully you can get all of your questions answered or at least get them on our list. So with that, we'll get started. And Miss Jenny, you want to come up here and get close to me so we can do our session? And when you're ready to talk, you'll have to take the mute button off right here. So this is Dr. Jenny Stroud, and she is our Director of District Support. So she'll be co-presenting with me this morning. So we want to talk about the timeline first, and the thing that is common between all of our jobs is we're working on the same 12-month calendar. The interesting thing is all the different things that are coming and going during that 12-month and how much we have to coordinate the information that's coming in. Some of the reports, of course, are written into law, and so the statute dictates when things must be submitted or posted. Some things are relying upon when you want your money. So all of those things may have timelines that work for us or against us. And so what I hope to encourage you is not to wait till the last minute, that we're kind of making this more of a cyclical process, that we're always working on it and we're not waiting till a due date. And we're not letting that due date dictate us, that we've got things already ongoing and we can just snapshot it and send it in during the time, during that open period. So first I want to start with needs assessment. You see this, you hear this, any federal programs person knows that there must be a needs assessment. You should always have a needs assessment. But lots of times people talk about needs assessment as if it's a form to fill out. And you certainly can go online and find needs assessment forms. But what I hope that you'll understand at the end of today is that needs assessment is a process. That document is always being updated, however you record. The first time I did a needs assessment, I did it in one of our classrooms at school, and we did it on bulletin boards. And it stayed there for years, and we constantly added to it. Now we have the luxury of Google Docs and so many other more valuable tools, more accessible tools. So today, Jenny and I are going to kind of walk you through this process. How many of you are involved in the needs assessment process in your district? Great, great, excellent. So to think about a needs assessment process, I have to kind of start with understanding what I'm trying, what's going to happen in a school. And if I want to change student achievement, so go to the very end of this graphic, go to the very end. I want to change student achievement. We want to improve our letter grade, we want to improve our ESSA index score, but mostly we want to improve the learning experience that the students in our school district are having. Then the kids have to do something different than they're doing right now. Would you agree with that? They have to be more engaged, they have to learn more, they have to learn at a deeper rigor. They have to have a different learning experience. Their behaviors have to change. They have to read more, they have to read more in-depth material. They have to do something different. And for that to happen, it stands to reason that in the classroom, the instructional behaviors would have to change. They have to instruct at a higher level. They have to provide those rich, enriching lessons that cause students to do something different. And if that's the type of school that you're having, it also stands that in your thinking that the leadership would have to think about their leadership behavior. How is your leadership behavior supporting that type of environment? And we see that in high reliability schools, don't we? That they are really thinking about the climate, the culture, the safety of the building. They're thinking about the instruction, they're thinking about the curriculum, and they're thinking about building a really complex, purposeful system that supports student learners. So if we're thinking about that, that gets us in shape to think about our needs assessment process. So if you pull up in fact, this not too long ago, I pulled up online, I just did a search for needs assessment, and I pulled up a document for one of the federal programs that somebody had posted, and the needs assessment document was like 30-something pages long. And that just strikes fear into the hearts of most people to have to fill out. So what I want to really share with you is that there are really 4 big components of a needs assessment process. And how much time and depth you put into it is equal to the result you're going to get out. So if you do it lightly and you say, I'm just filling this out for compliance, then you're probably not going to get a lot of benefit out of it. But if you really take this process through with the colleagues that you're working with, you can really come out with great information that makes a change in all of those behaviors at each level. So they work hand in hand. So the first part is your data collection. What data do you have? In Arkansas, we have a lot of data. Your ESSA school index is very thorough. Most of you give interim assessments. You have classroom assessments. You may have grade level assessments. You have your ongoing everyday anecdotal notes. You know so much about the students in your school, and not just the academics. You know about their health. You know about their demographics, their family. I taught in a school where the students were the children of the people that I went to school with, because I taught in the school that I went to school in. So I knew everyone. I knew everything about those kids. That's the information that you're pulling together. What data do we have? And then the question is, what do we understand about all of our data? Data is not just assessment scores. It's not just numbers. So as you look at this slide, I want you to really kind of dig down in here. There are multiple measures of data. Not only is there all kinds of assessment data, there's all the demographic data. How many of your kids are single parent families? Are they foster children? Are they homeless? There are so many things to know about them. The thing that often gets overlooked in a needs assessment is, what are the policies and practices in your school? And then, what is the perceptual data? And in a public school, whatever your community believes is fact, whether it's true or not. Our school had a hotline, and the minute something happened at school, parents were on the hotline. Now they have social media to put their information out on, but there's a hotline of sharing information from the perspective of whoever is leading that conversation. So all of that's important in how you shift those behaviors. Those behaviors are going to help you begin to answer your questions. And how you go through your analysis is up to you with your ability level. So if you've been through Leadership Academy, you learned a lot of great tools, like how to use a fishbone. You may have used the 5 whys. You may have gone through a thorough root cause analysis. And it's really about how much your team, your school family, your community is willing to dig. Sometimes if you get down there and you get to digging too much, it's too uncomfortable for people. So you have to make a decision about how much your team, school and community, how deep do they really want to dig into what the problems are. But the better you can identify the problem, then the better you can identify a solution. So we'll stop right here and let's kind of think through. So one of the problems that we have at the school I taught in is I taught 3rd grade, and when we left the lunchroom and went on break on the playground, instantly we had 5, 6 3rd graders that were instantly in trouble. First 5 minutes of going to the recess. And it's happening every day. Now, what's what my data's telling me, right? And so as teachers, we got together and we said, okay, this is ridiculous. What's going on here? And what was happening is a practice. Every day when we left the lunchroom and went to the playground, K2 was still on the playground for about 5 minutes. So here come our big third graders, full force running out there. They're knocking kids down. They're trying to get to the playground equipment. There's little kids on there. It just wasn't a good mix. So we've identified what the problem is, right? We used some data. We used our practice, and we looked at it and we said, what can we change here to get a better result? We went to our administration and said, we'd like to change our playground time. And they said, work it out. And we did. And when we changed our playground time, do you know how many kids were in trouble? 0. They were on the playgrounds by themselves. They had all the equipment. All the discipline issues went away. We had a very enjoyable playground experience. The kids were happy. The teachers were happy because no one's in trouble. Our time was better spent. And so that's a very simple explanation of how well a needs assessment process works, but it does work. And hopefully, as you think about your day, you're doing it all the time. As you're thinking through, you're thinking about academics, you're thinking about the data and how you're going to analyze that data. You're thinking about academics, but you're also thinking about all of your other systems. You're thinking about your discipline. You're thinking about how you're spending your money. You're thinking about your human capital. You're thinking about all of those, your health and wellness, your family engagement. You're thinking about all of those things as you're going through this process. You're going to have to prioritize. We've identified these problems. We've identified solutions. Can we get them all done this year? Man, probably not. Which ones can we get done now? Which ones do we need to plan out some time? Which ones are going to take a long time? And what little steps do we need to do along the way? And then, of course, you begin to write out your theory of action. This is a part that most people skip, so I want to really encourage you to look at this slide. In a theory of action, you're writing out what's going to change. What behavior has to change for your leaders? What behavior, and when I say behavior, it means your daily work. What are you doing in your daily work? What's going to change from your leadership? What's going to change from your teachers, from your instructors, support staff? You can add as many columns in there as you want. What change would you expect the students to do? So it comes back to that first slide. If we're going to get a different result, people have to do different things. So in our case, with the playground example, administration was supportive of changing our schedule that, by the way, had been the schedule since I was a student in that school. So to change a schedule was like recarving Mount Everest or Mount Rushmore. Everest. That'd be like climbing Mount Everest. So it was a big change. But our administration was open to that because we came with data and said, we have a problem, we've analyzed it, and we have a solution. So we were able to change. So our administration was supportive of a schedule change. What did the teachers have to do? We had to rearrange our instruction. We didn't lose any instruction time. In fact, we came back from the lunchroom, we had another instructional block, and then we went to our extended recess time. So what changed for us? Now, what's going to change for kids? They're going to have to really think about their play. They're organizing their games. They really have a stake in this, because if they weren't having a more enjoyable experience, this wouldn't have been worth it. Everybody had a part in this. And then, of course, you're setting, what are my goals? And my goals, what's the result I want to see? We wanted to see a reduction in disciplinary infractions. That's also planning out for, in my plan, what are the things I'm going to be looking for in the do section. You know, that continuous monitoring that you do when you're implementing your plan in a plan, do, check model. If you're writing out your theory of action, what everybody's going to do, and let me say this, not every time does your action involve the students. Sometimes they're just adult actions. Sometimes there's a goal for the adults and the students aren't even involved yet. We're not even down to them yet. We're changing some ways that we do business. So if we're purposefully thinking those out and writing those out in this stage, when we get ready to write our plan and implement our plan, all of our components are there. Because that next step is then thinking through our systems and make sure that we've thought through, you know, do we need to hire people? Do we need to do some professional development? Do we need to do more collaboration? Do we need to put in different interventions for kids? What do we need to do to meet those priorities that we set? That process, when I look back on my 4 stages of the needs assessment process, I'm moving back and forth. They're recursive. They're not linear. I don't do my data collection and then move on. I'm doing my data collection. I'm prioritizing. I may have to back up and do more data collection, right? I may get to my theory of action and go, uh-oh, I've got to back up and do more data collection because I don't have enough information or I need more. I'm constantly looking within those 4 stages. We have been very clear from the beginning that the improvement process, the writing your school improvement plan, is really an ongoing process. So although you send us or post to your website by August 1st, you post your school improvement plan, we have encouraged you to use a needs assessment process. And if your data changes and you need to adjust your school improvement plan, please do. So once this becomes that kind of process, we are less confined by dates. So if you're waiting to do school improvement planning before May 1st, that's a problem. Let's just identify that problem right now. It's a whole year process. You need to be talking about your data, talking about your solutions, talking about what your theory of action and goals are, and checking in on yourself all year long. It's that continuous cycle of inquiry. On May 1, you're just submitting your school improvement plan as it is today. And by the way, you know you can be early. I just want to put that out there. So if you've really done this process, then building a continuous cycle of plan, do, check really works. And so that's going to get us to our first question: who must post a school improvement plan?
But we already answered it.
So all schools. To go back to something Ms. Kaufman shared earlier, in that cycle of plan, do, and check and changing, there's a monitoring going on. That checking is not summative, but it's happening all of the time. It is ongoing so that you can make those changes. So please feel free. Please do that. Then there's no surprises in May. There are no surprises in August, right? Because we are checking all through the year. So that's a huge piece. We miss that sometimes. We notice that there's not a monitoring piece. So consider that. Just consider that as we continue to talk through it. So all schools has a school improvement plan. This slide, and it's kind of hard for me to see right here, is You can see it on the calendar. This is great. Deb created this circle so that we could really see the dates. And when we get finished, all of the dates will be on this for your reference. So August the 1st, we see the school improvement plan posted on the website. But that's posted. And like she said, if we get done before May, then go ahead and post it. And when we revise, all you have to do is put the date of revision. So here starts that circle. The plan due check, just a reminder. But let's check those components a little closer. What we're noticing is the checking, the planning. She laid those points out to consider and prioritize and put the steps in place, the theory of action, the if-then statements to move behaviors of adults first. But sometimes we miss the components and we just don't go deep enough. So the design and revise the data, inform plan for improving learning, but planning all the resources, even to the point of how many years of service do our teachers have? Have we considered that? If I'm a new teacher and you've got 2/3 of your staff new, under 3 years, should their staff development look the same? That's just a point of data to collect, not just about the students, as she said, not just the academics, but what about my teaching staff? So considering all of those things, and then after we prioritize and put it in place, we have the do, implementing the plan. And this is the part in implementation. How do we know it's being implemented? Because if we wait for check at the end as a summative measure, as an evaluation measure at the end, we will miss things back here to change in the doing. Like she said, we might have missed a point of data. We might have missed instructional practice that prohibits a child from hearing on grade level instruction, and we didn't even realize it. So I ask that we really check what we're presenting right here in the do. How do we know, how will you know the plans are being implemented? Who's in charge of that? What action steps are they in charge of? And what's the timeline to do that? We miss the timeline. Many times we'll just write a list of actions, but it's just a list. We didn't really get to the implementing part. What are the expectations when you send someone to a conference? They went to a conference. You spent $1,500. What do you do when you come back? What are the expectations to implement and put on a timeline? And who's going to check that, monitor that? Who's doing that? So we write it out to the detail. Then we can reflect. That's ongoing, and it could even be evaluated, right? So we're checking as we go along to see that things are implemented. But then at the end, did it work? Or can we think about that quarterly? So you want a big picture, you need to give something time, evaluate it, check it, make a point, put it in that timeline of your planning, plan that timeline out, implement, check, recheck, plan again, right? So there's the changes. That's how you revise. It's ongoing by the doing. So what should be included? We, hopefully this is it. When you walk away, you've got everything at your fingertips. You can go straight here and find out. We posted it by the law. It's simple to get to. I hope that's a quick reference for you. We did that in a couple of places, but we also mapped it out right here. I know this isn't new to this group unless we're just new to the group as a short amount of time. It's not new. This is not new except the literacy components. So student support and evidence-based intervention, we know we have to have evidence-based intervention. It is not theory of research. This worked in multiple areas over and over again. That's evidence-based. Wherever we do it, it's going to work. So if we just go down that list, I'm not going to read this to you, but that timeline for monitoring. That's what's so important. We miss that. As we take the data of what district school improvement plans and even district support plans is that monitoring and timeline. So that's back to the plan to check. What are we putting in place? Who's responsible for checking? But the what is, how are we implementing? So if you are training me on the science of reading, what do you expect from me when you come to my classroom? That's what the monitoring is of. So that now I can give feedback, I'm the principal, and now I can give feedback to my superintendent of where my building is. So monitoring, really writing that out. That's the piece that we need to hone in on. If you notice, it's included the literacy plan, and I'm sure that's hot on your mind. So we're writing, it says right here, science of reading, based on the science of reading. And we're looking at those plans. We've been sending them back pretty quickly. So this year, something to consider when we review the plans, yes, it's compliance, but that's never what all that we talk about. It doesn't stop there. It's back to what are best for kids, how are we prioritizing, how are we monitoring it, and how do you build the science of reading in your building, and on through the secondary level to make sure we're trained in what are we implementing, what are we monitoring, so as she said, we can get back to the student behavior. So you know where you can get that. We've got the link hot for you. We have that short page for you. And now we're back to May. We've shared that already. August, it's posted. And here's the district plan. So it's jointly developed. It's the same thing. We need a team. And I know some of you have heard me say this before. Please don't do these things by yourself. But one thing about it, if you're the person responsible to get it on paper, responsible for the applications, right, for the title money, for the 1003 money, for whatever applications, family engagement, if you're responsible for that, if we have a good needs assessment that a team is doing in the buildings, all you have to do is cut and paste. Because many of them ask for a needs assessment, correct? So you don't have to recreate it every time. So we put some information for you for the guide, what should be included in a district family engagement plan, and I'm going to give that to Chelsea to let her go forward. I also want to encourage that a district plan, school improvement plans, if you all will link our things together, you're not writing separately, and we'll get to that later, but I just want to plant that seed now, because now we're going to talk about another plan inside of your school improvement plan. And so consider that we're bringing all of these things in one place. Consider Google Docs, consider links, so that you don't have to find these plans in multiple places. Right? Because do you have enough to do? And you have to go hunt the document. So we're just suggesting that today, and we want to present in a manner that is more fluid for your job. So I hope you can think that way as we finish this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Stroud. Here on this slide, you'll notice we're starting to talk about our district family and community engagement plans. We'll talk in a minute about school family and community engagement plans. I see a lot of familiar faces in here. I see some faces I've never seen before, so I'll introduce myself briefly. I'm Chelsea Moore. I work in the Federal Programs Unit in Family and Community Engagement, and it is everything I eat, sleep, and breathe. I believe in this as a lever of change for your schools and districts, and the powerful piece about this is that all of the work that we've just been talking about, all of those needs assessments, you have an army of support out in your families, and it's just a matter of communicating all of that work that you're doing and roping them into the actions that you're planning with intentionality. So if your district is focusing on literacy, as you should be, every family member and every community member that you have should know that and eat, sleep, and breathe that as well. Your doctor's offices should be able to speak to that. Your grocery store clerks should be able to speak to that. Is it something that can happen overnight? Absolutely not. So what we really want to help you with is developing a plan that's meaningful, that moves you towards engaging everyone in the community, valuing all voices, but also moving a step beyond just compliance. I heard Dr. Stroud mention this. Compliance is important. We need compliance. But that's the floor. That's not the ceiling. We're aiming beyond compliance. We're aiming for excellence. So kind of in that vein, I do want to tell all of you, I know that this is not necessarily a plan that you're going to be super heavily involved in developing. I hope that you are. I think that would be wonderful. But there's a whole team of other people that are involved in this planning. So last week we had a webinar for family engagement facilitators, coordinators, Some of you came to that. We invited administrators to come. That webinar is recorded on our website, but it takes you through all of these sections that I'm really briefly going to hit on today. So first of all, here in the district plan, there are 5 big sections that you have to cover. The first part of that plan, like Dr. Strauss said, is that it's jointly developed expectations and objectives. So really digging into what your assessment identified and really thinking through how you're going to communicate that, what steps you need to take, what big goals you have in order to engage your families in that work. A key there is jointly developed. So ensuring that on those committees that you've got ample family members and community members represented. It shouldn't just be teachers who happen to be parents on your committees. We see that sometimes in our plans. And is that compliant? Well, you could argue that, but is that excellent? Well, I would argue that you're not really getting adequate representation there. And that's something we're really starting to focus on this year. How are you ensuring adequate representation? And number 2 here, the big difference between number 2 and number 3 is whose capacity you're building. So number 2, you're building staff capacity. Number 3, you're building family capacity. So you're going to have different ideas, different actions that you would take within both pieces of your plan. So going back to literacy, if you're building your staff capacity, you're building your staff to be able to communicate with families about RISE. If on number 3, you're still talking about literacy, you're building your family's capacity to understand RISE. So both of those levers are kind of moving at the same time. You want your staff, all of your staff across your district to be able to speak the same language and to value all voices and bringing families to the table. The big change in family engagement in the recent past is that it has moved from parent involvement to family engagement. And that's a seemingly simple change, but really it's huge. Parents can be very limited. Family means anyone. I heard Deb mention it earlier that family can be anyone involved in that student's life. That could be a foster family, that could be grandparents, that could be aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, it could be anyone. A fictive kin, really anyone that is engaged in that student's education. Involvement means I'm going to tell you what we're doing. I'm letting you in on what we're doing at this school. That's good. We need to do that. But a step beyond that is engagement. So I'm involving you by telling you, and I want to listen to what you have to say about it. So it's all about two-way communication, which again takes time. If you've been participating in any of our trainings about family engagement, you know that's something that we continue to reiterate. If you get 3 to 5 very invested family members and community members engaging in your committees and planning on this work, and next year you get 5 to 7, you're doing the work right. Just have to keep at it. So that's the kind of the difference between involvement and engagement. So we've done 1, 2, and 3 now. Number 4 is reservation and evaluation. So I think that's where a lot of the people in this room come in. Reservation, you know that certain districts have to set aside funding for family and community engagement. But the big thing I want to point out about this is that even if you're not required to set aside funding for family and community engagement, you can set aside funding for family and community engagement. So a lot of districts on this section of the plan have mentioned in their plan this doesn't apply to us because we're not required to set aside. But the thing I want to point out to you is that the second piece of this section is evaluation. So ensuring how you're evaluating this plan. Are you getting out to more parents? Do you have more parents coming to your building? Are your parents feeling like your conversations are more meaningful? Those kind of softer evaluations might be really powerful for your district to know if work is moving the needle on engagement. So every district will respond to number 4 on there, ensuring that you're conducting some sort of evaluation of your family engagement. And then number 5 is coordination. Here would be a great place for you to outline how your committees are working together. So how your school improvement plan is working with your family engagement plan. These are not separate entities. They should most certainly be working together. And I've heard a lot of districts, kind of going back to that evaluation piece, I've heard a lot of districts have kind of a team review process where schools are reviewing other schools' plans for compliance, giving feedback on ideas. Another thing that I've heard a couple districts doing is kind of taking that one step further, but engaging people from different types of planning into reviewing other types of plans. So for instance, that school improvement planning team reviewing the family engagement plan and vice versa. Because you really want those people talking together and working towards the same things. So everything that you see here on this page, the 5 sections, those are also included in school plans. On the right, you'll notice a blue document. That is a guide that we've created for writing your district parent and family engagement plans. You'll see a link there. That actually takes you to the federal programs parent and family engagement page. That blue document has every letter of the law that explains to you all of the different pieces that you need to include in your plans. So it's got federal law, state law, and then Arkansas Department of Education rules, all relating to family engagement. So what we've done is we've broken that all down into these 5 sections for you so that you can respond to those. The big thing in regards to all of this timeline talk is that these are all due in InduStar and on websites by August 1, which just changed this last year. So that changes your timeline for this year. I'm getting a lot of calls about schools and districts wondering, okay, so how do we work this timeline now? You are going to have to backtrack a little bit. You should be starting to think about your family engagement plans now. You're thinking about your school improvement plans now. So really, again, it aligns that process so that they naturally flow together so that those people are having conversations with one another. So here is the school, family, and community engagement plan sections. You'll notice a lot of those are the same as what I just talked about for the district level plans. I won't go deeply into all of these. Some of them, you'll notice, have a star next to them. Those are required in all Title I schools. So that's, for example, the Title I meeting, the school parent compact, the reservation of funds, and then number 9 is kind of discretionary ways that you can build capacity. Don't let your schools overlook that section because there's some really great ideas as ways in the federal law that you don't have to do, but conducting home visits, that is a very powerful evidence-based strategy that you don't have to do, but if your district chooses or your schools choose to do that type of thing, write that in your plan. What we've been telling people is that this is an opportunity to tell your story. Help your facilitators and coordinators to write these plans in such a way that the families and communities, when they read it, they see, oh wow, we are valued in this, we see ourselves, we see where we fit in this whole plan. So really sing your story, tell your praises, really just show everyone all of the hard work that you are doing. A lot of times I'll get on the phone with the school or district when we've sent their plan back for revision, and they'll say, we're already doing that. And so many times I say, well, it's just not written in your plan. That's all we've got to do is we've got to write that in your plan. So it's an easy fix. So if you feel like there's something in there that you haven't, that you were asked to return for revisions, that you feel like you're doing it, give us a call. We will absolutely walk through it with you and ensure that you've got those things in there to tell your story. Again, there's another guide for school parent and family engagement plans, and it's got kind of a light pink cover on it. So both of those, again, can be found on this bit.ly link. All of those are due in the STAR and on websites by August 1. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so the question was, is it possible for family engagement plans to be due and end to start by June 1 so that they can then be approved and then be posted by August 1? I think that's an excellent idea. It's not written in statute that way, but send it by June 1. Absolutely, I think that's right.
We'll have to check to see when you start.
And yes, that was a question that we have received through our Family Engagement Advisory Group and through our webinar when that's going to be open. And I've reached out to InduStar to begin those conversations, but that is kind of a key lever there, whether or not those plans will be open to begin inputting them before June 1. But yes, if we can make that happen, we want to make that happen because, I mean, the sooner the better you can get started on these plans. Thank you. Any other questions? I've got one more slide here I'm going to share with you. So just some kind of big ideas about family engagement. I hope you leave this section knowing that family engagement plans are a part of school improvement plans. They're not a separate piece. They're not a separate checklist. They are a lever to make your school improvement plans more effective. Also, family engagement plans should have clear and measurable expectations and objectives based on a needs assessment. I'm not going to dig completely back into the assessment, but that should absolutely inform what is included in your family engagement plan. Federal coordinators play an integral role in ensuring that the expenditures align purposefully with your plans. So you should be engaged in this process. I get a lot of questions about can we spend our Title I dollars on insert item, food, whatever here. I've got really a series of questions that I'll go through with you. Is it necessary? Is it reasonable? Is it serving to improve educational outcomes for your students? And I'm going to skip down to the bottom one. One of the biggest questions that I will ask you is, how are your families involved in this decision? Do you have evidence that families want whatever you're asking? Because that's one of the key requirements of spending that family and community engagement set aside. And then, of course, I mentioned this already, that next to last bullet, that districts may choose to set aside funds for family engagement, but districts receiving more than $500,000 in Title I must set aside 1% for engagement. And Ms. Annette has to keep us all on track with that. Are there any questions that I can answer about this page? Yeah. Sure, so the building capacity discretionary, let me go back to that. You'll see it section 9 in the school plan. It's discretionary because the federal law says may on all of these statements. So each of those items listed there, you may provide transportation if it's necessary for your parents to come and attend an event. You may provide childcare. The law is not going to state that you have to do those things. So in this section, we're just asking you to outline the items that you've done or the actions that you've done that are really going above and beyond that bare compliance, but showing that you've chosen at your discretion to go above and beyond and do some of these kind of more innovative but yet really powerful actions. And that's also, I'm going to rewind to the district plan. That is included in the district plans as well. However, a lot more of those discretionary activities are happening at the school level. It is embedded in number 3 on the district plan. So if you as a district have a policy that you are conducting home visits, in section 3, you could outline how you're building parent capacity in those discretionary ways. What other questions can I answer? I'm excited to have questions. Great.
Chelsea, clarify on the next slide. Number 9, and
Say that one more. Yes, so that number 9, that to answer that question is required. Yes. Again, those items, because they say may, you don't have to do line by line, but it is required that you answer the question. Thank you. What other questions can I answer? I hope you're starting to see how we're trying to wrap all of these things together. That all of these pieces shouldn't be standalone piecemeal efforts. That really these are all levers to move towards the same big goals that you're setting based on the same needs assessment data. And of course, we are always available to talk, process, think through what you thought. And my name is Chelsea Moore, so give me a call, give me an email, and I'm happy to help anytime. The next up we have, back to the calendar. So we've gone all the way around. We've done August, those parent involvement plans are submitted. And now we are approaching October for wellness plans.
Thank you. I'm thankful to be following you up, Chelsea. We have a lot of the same sentiment, I think, in the way that we approach these two pieces of health and of the improvement plans. I'm Jerry Clark. I'm the Health Services Director at DEXI, and I'm going to talk to you guys about the Health and Wellness Improvement Plan that is also required as part of the process. So I have, I think, 4 slides to show you guys, which I really just brought it down to the nitty-gritty so that I can talk about, number 1, the basic expectations and requirements for health and wellness as it relates to the improvement planning process. And then I really want to spend a little bit of time as I go through these slides to help you guys start making a direct connection to making your health and wellness plan meaningful to your overall goals for improving academic achievement and that big picture. So I really want to talk about that and how you can kind of collaborate and streamline some of those other things that you're doing from the district level, from the improvement planning process level, from your needs assessment process. Oh, that reminds me, I forgot the sticky note. So I really want to spend most of my time on that. But bottom line is for health and wellness, the requirements for school improvement planning, there's a district level plan. So there's a compliance form and ENDOSTAR at the district level that must be completed by every district. And these plans are due October 1. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then there's the second piece, which is a compliant form at the school level. This is where you're really setting your goals at the building level and looking at the needs of those student populations as they relate to health and wellness and safety, behavioral health, all of those different things that relate to that 10-component model that we work within for health services. So for your district plan, in the STAR, really there's one thing that we need you to do. We need you to tell us who is on your wellness committee. That's one of the requirements. It's a state and federal requirement that every district have a wellness committee. And there on this screen, I've got the members that are mandated to be serving on your district level wellness committee. Now you have some options with your wellness committee as far as how you structure that. Some school districts are tiny and they're K-12. They have one wellness committee. They know all the students across the board and they collaborate together at the district level. And they take time to do that and making sure that all the grade bands are represented and all the school buildings are represented on that one district committee. But for some of the larger districts, you have some options of subcommittees and working at the subcommittee level based on your school building and then bringing together a smaller district committee that represents each building in your district. So you have some options there of how you want to structure that. I think the most important thing with your wellness committee, though, is making sure that you have the right people at the table. What Chelsea was talking about. Do you have the right parents and perspective? Do you have some of your community leaders, those real go-getter community leaders that are part of and being invested in your school and some of those things that you have going in your school campuses? And as you'll see, community members are a requirement on your wellness committee. Students are a requirement on your wellness committee representation, and parents. So we want to encourage you to, and it doesn't have to just be one parent, it can be a few parents. Depending on what you're really wanting to bring to the table, what you know the needs are of your families. From a health and wellness perspective, I would recommend bringing in a parent for your wellness committee of a student with a chronic condition or some type of health need that you know as a school district you need to be prepared to take care of life-threatening illnesses on your campus. And get that parent's perspective of how you can make sure that that parent feels like their student's going to be safe on your campus. That's going to help drive some of those resources and professional development and policies for all of your staff, but specifically those public health professionals on your campus. Your community members on your health and wellness committee are extremely important. This is where you're going to get some of the work done that you need to do as a school district. You've got providers in your community, pediatricians in your communities, the Lions Club. They're great supporters of health and wellness initiatives on your campus. So these are the people that you should bring to the table, and they will happily come. I promise you, they will come. But if you'll invite them, they'll be there, and they'll fill some of those gaps that you're going to be needing to fill in order to move achievement forward when you really start making those connections. So the basic requirements for health and wellness at the state level, it's pretty wide open. It's pretty broad. I look at, it's Act 1220 from 2003. We affectionately refer to it as that, but it's the nutrition and physical activity rules where you're going to find all of the state regulatory guidance on your school improvement planning for health and wellness. But really, it's broad enough that it gives you all, school districts in Arkansas, a good solid platform to address health and wellness on your campuses. But it's broad enough that it allows you to make it meaningful. And I don't think that we've really done that yet as far as streamlined across the state the approach for health and wellness and really making that a part of the school improvement process. So Deb had you guys raise your hands a little while ago and asked how many of you guys are a part of the assessment process, needs assessment process. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to follow up with that. Those of you that answered and raised your hand, how many of you all include health and wellness data in that needs assessment process? So that, I think, is a big thing. Okay, we've got a couple of hands there. So I think that's a big piece that we may be missing. If you're looking at all this data, the student data, your safety data, just all kinds of data, like Deb was saying, if you're not looking at some of that big ticket health and wellness data, like your vision screenings, kids with chronic conditions, life-threatening conditions, if you're not looking at that, there's a possibility that you're undermining all these other pieces that you're doing because you're missing that really important piece for that student and what they need to be successful in the classroom. How many of you guys serve on your wellness committee in any capacity? That's great. Now, the last thing I want to bring up on this slide is that I want you guys to consider integrating your wellness committee with other activities and requirements, like your family and community engagement committee. They look very much the same. And when you're addressing health and wellness needs of your students on your campus, 9 times out of 10, you're looking at those other at-risk populations that these other committees are requiring you to look at and really look in depth of what their needs are. Health and wellness will be a part of that. So there's nothing wrong with taking a step back and looking at what your required activities are as a district or a school and integrating those things together. So you're having a more robust conversation, you're getting more people to the table, and you're really getting to the bottom of what that overall picture looks like for these students and the needs they're serving. There's a little typo. I had an XX. I was going to fill in. They downloaded the PowerPoint before I did that, but I did actually fill that in later with Title I. But I did have a question. Does Title I have to have a committee? And the answer is yes. So those are your at-risk populations. Also have on here family and community engagement. And so there are things happening at the district level. There's no reason why health and wellness should be separate, as long as you make sure that you're meeting the compliance pieces that are required. And like I said, it's broad enough that you should be able to do that and do it successfully and in a way that is really meaningful for your school district. Okay, so this is the school level health and wellness plan. So the first piece was the district. Really all we want to know is who's serving on your wellness committee and are you meeting the requirements of the state legislation and federal legislation. Now, the school level plan, that's the second piece. This is where you really start diving into including your needs assessment data. There are 2 required pieces that you have to look at as part of your needs assessment for health and wellness. The first is body mass index. So we know that we do screenings and there's school level reports that come out for the Center for Health Improvement every year, and looking at the obesity rates in your school buildings. That's one of the things that you're required to look at. The other is the school health index assessment, which is a 11 component assessment that looks at the different areas of health and wellness. There's required components that schools in Arkansas must do. That's state required. And those components are modules 1, 2, 3, and 4, which include assessing your school health and safety policies, health education, physical activity, physical education, nutrition, education and services, and family and community engagement. Those are all part of the school health index assessment. And it takes you through a questionnaire and you kind of evaluate where you are with some of these things. And like Deb and I think Chelsea and Dr. Stroud said earlier, start with your low-hanging fruit. You're not going to get everything done in 1 year, but just start with where you are and continue to build on that. And look at where your most prevalent areas are of need or where you're the closest to really moving that needle. But those are the 2 pieces of data that are required when you're sitting down and getting ready to set some goals and move that needle forward for health and wellness. Other data sources that I would recommend that you use, your vision screening data. Every school district vision screenings are mandated in the state of Arkansas. We know that those can be a barrier to educational achievement for students. And I'm going to share just a little bit. I wish I had included this slide, but I didn't. I'm going to share a little bit of statewide vision screening data with you all, and you'll see that that is really low-hanging fruit for us as far as Arkansas schools are concerned. So last school year, 264,000 students received a vision screening. Of those 264,000, 27,000 students were referred by the school nurse for a follow-up with the ophthalmologist. Of those 27,000 students that were referred, only 9,000 students actually made it to an eye doctor exam. There's a huge gap there. Of the 9,000 that went to the eye doctor, over 8,000 were confirmed to need some type of treatment or corrective lenses. That is an 83% efficacy rate of the vision screening process. But we have a huge gap for kids actually being identified and making it to the eye doctor. So I think that's probably the lowest hanging fruit. If your wellness committee hasn't addressed something like this, I would encourage you to include the vision screening data for your school and that follow-up data and look at that and see if that's something that you can do as a wellness committee and developing a plan in your health and wellness improvement plan of how you can partner with a local ophthalmologist or optometrist, engage your parents, and move that needle forward. That is low-hanging fruit for us. Absolutely. And that, thank you. So that's a great segue. So Deb just said it affects your reading scores. Absolutely it does. So you want to make sure that those goals that you're setting in your health and wellness plan, treat them as secondary goals. We know they're not directly related to instruction and academic achievement in the classroom a lot of times, but they're definitely a secondary goal that's going to support those big primary goals that you guys are working on. So make that connection mentally and have that discussion. Make them where they're meaningful and you know that they're going to help you to move that big needle forward. In your school level health and wellness plan, there are 4 goals that's already set at the state level. That's legislative goals that focus on nutrition services, physical activity, staff annual professional development related to health and wellness. And then the 4th one is really just an optional goal. We thought it was really important to make sure we open that window wide open for you guys. If you've got something that you want to work on, you know it's hindering those big indicators, write it into your health and wellness plan. The vision is the perfect example to make that an optional goal number 4. The second one, physical activity. We know that physical activity is going to impact engagement in the classroom. It's going to impact behavior. It's going to impact mental wellness of your students and your staff. So that's something that you can focus on, is making sure your teachers are trained on getting kids out of their seat and action-based learning or brain breaks, things like that. That's all low-hanging fruit that's really going to impact the way your classrooms are operating and engaging your students. So things to remember here. I mean, I've got in bold right here. Just make it meaningful. Make it where it's something that means something to you, and you value the information. The only other statistic I want to share at the bottom of the screen: 38% of our students that we serve in the state of Arkansas has some type of chronic condition. And that does lead to a lot of problems. It leads to a lot of absences. And I've got here the top 5, which is ADHD, asthma, life-threatening allergies, seizures, and diabetes. And a lot of times you're going to have parents that have a student with a chronic condition, and they're going to be afraid to send that kid to school because they had an episode that morning before. Or your kids don't have good management of those conditions. So that's where you can start engaging some of your community providers and your parents on helping to make that something that's not impacting their absenteeism. And again, you're aligning those efforts with those overarching goals that you have in your big plan. Oh, so Deb Kaufman said she's going to come up here and ask a couple of questions throughout, so I'm going to ask one of them for her. She had mentioned earlier, what supports do you need from us? We have a big team that serve just on health and wellness between the Department of Ed and the Department of Health, and we are here to help you. So what supports do you need from us? And the first thing that came to my mind when she asked that this morning is, I wish I had, that's her example, blank, and probably any federal program coordinator, bookkeeper, or superintendent's going to say, I wish I had $1 million for this, right? I wish I had $1 million. Well, how about $45 million? This is your Medicaid money from last year that was brought in statewide for school districts. This is where your money could be to help close the gap when you get that kid to the eye exam and they need glasses and you're not able to get the parent to follow through. This money can pay for those types of things. Med checks, co-pays for doctor's appointments. I've got a breakdown here on the restricted Medicaid money that comes back to the district, which must be set aside for special education programming. But there's a whole list here of non-restricted Medicaid reimbursement that comes to your district that you can use to support that health and wellness plan. There's a list of examples of how that funding can be used on your campus. So I want to just encourage you to make sure you've got the right people, you federal programs folks. If you're not on your wellness committee, engage the leader of your wellness committee. Make sure you're informed on what health data they're looking at and the disparities. And make sure that you're able to have that conversation about where does health and wellness fit into our overall plan, and make it meaningful. And call us if you need us.
Thank you. So I'm hoping that you're hearing that common message. And that brings us to who must post a district support plan. We get this message over and over, so I'm going to be very clear about it. Districts receiving support, level 2 collaborative, 3 coordinated, 4 directed, or 5 intensive, are required to submit a district support plan to the department. But writing a district support plan is just good business. We didn't, in the statute, we did not require all districts to submit it because that's part of us trying to say, if you're doing the right thing, why do you have to send it to the department, right? So that is your incentive to do the right thing and use your district support plan. You need to post it to your website because the right thing is to share it with your public. This document's very hard to read, but you have it in the slide. you'll see, you've seen this used many, many, many times. And it talks about the 5 levels of support. We've tried to kind of break it down to help people understand it. It's written into the state accountability statute. You can read all about it. But I wanted to kind of show it to you in a different way. And over on the right-hand side, there is a state requirement that went into effect this school year. If your district has 40% or more students scoring in need of support for reading, you must receive level 3 coordinated support from the department. If you have a district that is receiving that support, you received an official letter from my office. So if you didn't get a letter, it's not you. The next question you're going to say is, well, I'd like to see a list. We don't maintain a list because from the very beginning when that law passed, what did I say to you? I don't like labels. I don't want you calling our schools a level 3 school. I want you saying that they are schools first. They are schools. They may need help, and we're all happy to help, but stop labeling our schools. So we have followed that practice. I cannot send you a list because I don't maintain a list. If you got a letter, you're getting support. If you didn't get a letter, celebrate. Keep doing it. Keep working. Keep getting your school improvement plans. Keep developing your district support. If you had 50% or more of students in need of support in reading, you need support. You're receiving level 4 directed support. Read those across. Here's the exciting things. We've had districts send us official letters requesting level 4 support because they want to do the right things. That's how our state accountability system should work. Don't make us come find you. Hold up your hand and let us help you get things on track. Under the federal requirement, if you had a school that was identified as in the lowest 5% in need of comprehensive support and improvement, CSI, or if you had a subgroup of kids that scored in the lowest 1% for 3 consecutive years, you need additional targeted support and improvement. And our team is able to help you with that. We help you with possibility of a 1003 grant and support. So, but that support can range anywhere. We have schools and districts that are receiving those funds, and their support is anywhere between collaborative at level 2 all the way to level 5 and 10. It's different for different ones because they need different things. So I hope this has kind of helped to answer that question so we can move on and get to the real important part of district support plan. When's it due? What needs to be in it?
So this is real quick. Again, we created a document that you can refer to quickly and easily, just like we did for the school improvement plan. But if I can make some connections before we go on with a district support plan, it's you had to have a district support plan. You've heard 3 different programs, right? Health and wellness, family community engagement, then the academic side. We've all talked about a needs assessment. We have those things in common. A district, let's do an example. My district can't read. 50% of my students aren't reading on grade level. I have a district goal for that. That's required. How does that support? How does meeting that goal, what do I write in that will address Chelsea's work for family community engagement? How does that align then with my health and wellness? And she gave a perfect example. If I can't read well because I can't see, and you're spending your time screening me for other things, including dyslexia and so on, right? Screening, putting me in intensive programs, an RTI program, I'm going to get them for 30 minutes, 15 minutes. I just need some glasses. So you see, when she said secondary goal, it supports my district's goal of a literacy goal, right? To address 50% of my students. So consider that. They all align. We're trying to say, don't think about these things. We got a separate district support plan, though they do have some requirements that are different that we have to address. It still comes back to the main thing. So we've just created that again for you so you can see the timeline. This is a, you know, we never present something that is not a reference for you or that you can't take back. I also hear the federal program coordinator is the one that's writing these plans and it's writing the needs assessment. Here's a great example. I've said don't do that before. Don't ever do it by yourself. No one has ever said that. You have a team. We have a team. We have supports. Go get them. I have one federal program coordinator that calls me and says, I'm not going to do that alone. What do I do? Tell your superintendent. Or you go and get the people. You start that team of people to support your work. I know that's happening. They went straight to the principals. The principals then went to the superintendent and said, we need support. There's lots of ways to engage a team so that you're not writing this alone. So we give you the timelines. We'll keep that going. Again, that's a live link. It takes you to this document of what's required. I'm not going to read it to you. I just want you to know you have it at your fingertips. The literacy components are included for a district support plan as well. I know that's a hot ticket item, but we're coming along with that. This year it's more about compliance, but we'll be looking at closer as curriculum is brought out for that and what to go to. We'll be talking about that at a higher level. So I'm going to let this go because I'm not going to read it to you, but I just wanted to bring it close that we have all these separate plans, but they're not separate plans, right? How would a district support all of these? And those are goals written accordingly to that, right?
So then in October, your ESSA data comes out, or ESSA school index is going to come out, and you're like, but we just wrote our school improvement plans back in May. Because that continuous cycle of inquiry, that plan, do, check, is not they start at the beginning of the year and work till the end. It's going on all the time. 2 or 3, 4 times a year, you need to be going in and making sure that you're following that cycle of inquiry. So even though the calendar kind of lays out those compliance timelines, centers just spinning and working all the time. So I wanted to kind of wrap this back together for us. If you'll just advance to the next slide. Is every time you're getting new data, you're coming back to your process and putting that back in. And so as I think about that, it also kind of makes me come back here to think, Evan, you want to find a good spot? As Evan's adjusting the camera so we can show this to our viewing audience as well. But as I think about what we just said this morning, is at the school level, you've got school level committees that are coming together. There may be subcommittees that are looking at health, subcommittees looking at engagement, or it may be your committee working together as a whole. That's your decision. You're conducting a needs assessment of information and prioritizing what you need and writing your school improvement plans. That's happening at your elementary, your middle, your high school. And then that's all coming together. So probably that representatives from your school committees are the people that serve on your district committees, right? There are probably some of those representatives that serve at the district level. So in thinking about that, they're also going to bring that communication back and forth. And then these school improvement plans are analyzed, and that's how you're going to prioritize at the district. How are we going to spend our funds? How are we going to prioritize? That's what we're going to move into right after break is, what do I need to think about as I think about how I'm going to use my funding to meet the needs that all of these schools said they have. So for the rest of the morning and the afternoon, that's what we're going to be talking about, is how do we use our money to ensure we get the change that we've talked about this morning. So it does take all of us. If you're not on the Health and Wellness Committee, if you're not serving in that and reading what they need, then when we're deciding at the district level how we're going to spend the money, we may not be spending it in a place that's going to bring about the change that's desired back here in the classroom or in the school or in the community. So I'm going to ask you to think about that. Think about your questions. Think about what kind of supports we need. My clock says 10:28, so I'm going to start back exactly at 10:40. So that's giving you about 12 minutes to run to the restroom and fill up your coffee, get right back up here, and Annette's going to take us into federal grants management. Thank you.